On the last Koine Corner, we looked at the parable of the lost sheep. We started with the context prior to that, looking at the tax collectors and sinners coming to hear Jesus, and the Pharisees and the Scribes grumbling, saying that this man receives sinners and even eats with them. Then he launched into the story of the lost sheep. What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one, doesn't leave the 99 in the desert place and continually keep looking, keep going after the one that's lost until he should find it? And when he does find it, he puts it on his shoulders rejoicing, and when he gets home, he calls his friends and neighbors and says, "Rejoice with me, for I found my lost sheep," right? That leads us into our next parable in the cycle of three, the parable of the lost coin. Let us dive right in. This is in Luke chapter 15, verse 9 from the ESV. "Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it?" So, what are the first things that we see? We've gone from a man in the first story to a woman in the second. What man from among you to, or what woman? We also get a ratio change, right? There was a man who had 100 sheep. Now we have a woman who has 10 coins, 10 drachma specifically, a silver coin, the equivalent to a denarius, a day's pay, essentially. What does it matter that we've gone from one of 100 to one of 10? Well, in everything in life, scarcity imputes value, right? So by weight, gold is worth more than iron. Diamonds are worth more than coal. Despite them both being made of carbon, one is in great abundance, one is scarce. Scarcity imputes value. So in a cycle of parables about the value of a found thing, we're necking down the value. 1 in 100 is not as valuable as 1 in 10, right? So let us carry on. We see that in the parable of the lost sheep, we're told that the man leaves the 99 and he continually goes until he should find it, continually goes after the lost one. That phrase is interesting. It's poruetai epito apololos. He's going continually until he should find it. But here with the woman, the pursuit is, we get much more detail about the pursuit. Not that she just goes after the coin. Let's take a look at it in Koine. Hapte luknon, kai saroi, tein oikian, kai zete epimelos. So 3 things we're told about the search. Hapte luknon. She lights a lamp, kai saroi tein oikian, and sweeps the house. Then we get the third part, kai zete epimelos, and searches, seeks carefully, meticulously. In the word that the ESV uses is diligently. So let's think about these 3 different parts. She lights a lamp, and the verb lights is in the present tense, just like going after the sheep. It's continually. In other words, she doesn't stop keeping a lamp lit to look for this thing. She's like, this is serious business. She doesn't just glance around. She doesn't rattle her pockets. She probably doesn't have pockets. But she lights a lamp, and she keeps a lamp lit so that she can see better. She sweeps the home. I'm saying the home rather than the house because there's an interesting little nugget here. Tein oikian is feminine. Is it feminine because we're talking about a woman? It very well could be. But when we see oikian versus oikos is a house, a structure, a building, the masculine noun, but the feminine noun always means a home. So this is not just a structure that she's searching. This is her home. This is where she lives. She knows where things are. Generally, in your home, you know where things belong, right? So she's continually, again, present tense verb, sweeping the house while doing what? Searching deliberately, carefully, diligently. And I love this word, epimelos. Epi, on or at, and melos, part. Like she's searching each part by part. She's not just doing a general survey of the house. She doesn't sweep the floor and say, well, I didn't find it. She goes almost like in a grid search. First, I'm going to check here, then I'm going to check there, then I'm going to check this next spot, then I'm going to check over here. She's deliberately, carefully, meticulously, part by part, searching. And how long is she going to search? Just like the man going after his sheep, it goes after it until he should find it. We're told this woman goes through this three-part process: lamp lighting, sweeping, and carefully searching spot by spot until she should find it. Great parallel, great stuff. Let's go on to verse 9. And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost. So, same call to community. When the lost thing is found, the friends and neighbors are called. Same announcement, rejoice with me. But then there's a major difference. The shepherd says, I found my lost sheep. But the woman says, I found the coin that I had lost. So in the first one, in the first parable, the sheep is my lost sheep. In the second parable, the coin parable, the coin that I had lost. This could simply be a function of the fact that sheep wander and coins generally don't wander. If a coin wanders off, we tend to suspect that somebody had sticky fingers, right? But this could imply that the coin is lost by a lack of attention, if not to theft, by a lack of attention. I don't think she suspects theft because her process is based on her finding something that's misplaced inside her home. So in the context of the three parables, right, all the tax collectors and sinners coming to hear Jesus, Pharisees and scribes are grumbling, and Jesus has now told two stories about a search for the lost thing and rejoicing at finding the lost thing. If sheep wander and coins don't, is there some implication that the tax collectors and the sinners, the wanderers, the outsiders that the Pharisees and scribes are grumbling about, could they have been lost to inattention? Was somebody responsible for making sure that they didn't get lost? And did somebody drop the ball? That's just food for thought. There's no grammatical clues there. There's no linguistic clue. That's just for you and your personal wrestling. Moving on to verse 10, our last verse of the day. Just so, or likewise, I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. So again, just like in the story of the lost sheep, Jesus shifts to exposition. He's going to explain to his hearers, to the Pharisees and the scribes, the meaning, the import of what he's saying. And again, he starts with this great word, hutos. Likewise, this story is like this part of reality. This is what you need to know about this. But then there's a big divergence. Take a look in Koine at what he says about this. So he starts out with hutos, likewise. Then he says, Ginetai kara and nopion ton angelion to theou. Ginetai kara, there is joy, enopion, before, in the presence of, ton angelion to theou, the angels of God. There is joy before the angels of God. Then we get the last part, epihenai hamartolo metanuunti, at one sinner repenting. Exactly the same phrase verbatim from the lost sheep story. At one sinner repenting. But here's where it's really important, the difference. He says, Ginetai kara, there is joy. In the story of the lost sheep, he said, estai, there will be estai, there shall be joy, more joy in heaven over one sinner repenting than over 99 having no need of repentance. So here in the coin story, we don't get there will be joy before the angels of God. We get there is joy before the angels of God. You see the critically important difference, the tense shift? The first story talks about something that will happen in the future. What man from among you, you guys recognize that any of you would behave this way. You would celebrate. You would call your neighbors together. And I tell you in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven about one repentant sinner than about 99 who have no need of repentance. But here, in a story that necks down the ratio, gets a little more immediate in the number, the scarcity, necks down the diligence of the search, right? Instead of just continually going until he should find it, she's lighting a lamp, she's sweeping the floor, she's grid checking every part of the house until she should find it. When the thing comes together and she has success, the immediacy, the tightness of the story is such that it's not that there will be joy in heaven in the future, it's that there is joy in the presence of God's angels now because of a lost thing being found. When one sinner repents. One of how many? One of 10 rather than one of 100? Interesting stuff. There's another divergence here. There's no contrast in the coin story to the 99 who have no need of repentance. So in the sheep story, it's there will be more joy in heaven over the one repenting sinner than over the 99 who have no need. Here, it's just there is joy in the presence of the angels, before the angels of God, over one sinner repenting. Full stop, period, end of sentence. No discussion of the 9 coins. Why? Because the 9 coins couldn't wander like the other sheep. The other sheep could have wandered, but they didn't. Is that why? Could be. Well, I have to leave that up to you. We're not told why. In his exposition, Jesus doesn't explain why he contrasts in the first story and doesn't contrast in the second story. But what is the point? What is, when we look at both stories and the narrowing of the focus, what is the point? The emphasis in both stories increasingly is the value and importance of the thing that was lost and now is found. That's where the value is. Much more so than a criticism of the, quote, faithful, at least the ones who thought themselves faithful. Who in the context thinks themselves faithful? The Pharisees and the Scribes. They feel themselves to be so faithful that they can criticize Jesus and say, this man welcomes sinners and even eats with them. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't behave like that. Jesus comes back with what? What one from among you who are grumbling and complaining wouldn't act this way if you had 100 sheep and lost one? Or was a woman who had 10 coins and found that one was missing? Wouldn't you act the same way? Wouldn't you have the same kind of joy? Wouldn't you want to call the neighbors and say, rejoice with me? He doesn't care so much about criticism of them. The story is the criticism. The point is things that were lost that are now found are incredibly valuable and worthy of rejoicing here on earth. And he says, there will be joy in heaven. There's heavenly value. There is joy in the presence of God's angels every time one sinner repents. When somebody who was lost is found, when a wanderer is brought home, when a thing that was almost written off is located where the inattention has been corrected, there's joy to be had. And if you wonder about that word joy, go back to Wednesday's word of the week from last week, and we unpacked the word joy and rejoice. And there we have it, the lost sheep and the lost coin in response to the grumbling of the Pharisees and the scribes. Next time we get together, next Sunday, we're going to start the parable of the lost son, otherwise known as the prodigal son, the one who leaves town and lives riotously and comes crawling back when he's broke. I hope this was good for you. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until we see each other again, Charis Kai Reina Humi, grace and peace to you.